Hey, what's up, love? This is your girl Sheila's 89. Hopefully, y'all can see me. Hold up. Let me get a little closer. Let me get a little closer. Um, it's been a minute. So let me tell you guys where I've been. And my forehead looks shiny, yes. Um, like it just hard drive went. Don't know why. But back, it's Halloween. We're gonna get into these reactions on some Halloween horror stories or whatever scary stories we're gonna be looking at. Get, there we go. And again, make a video before, so y'all probably didn't see anything. Backyard Baseball is now back on Steam, and some other ones is going to be back on Steam. So I know baseball 97 and I think 01. I think 01 if I'm not mistaken. Basketball, football. I'm not sure about the skateboarding one or the hockey one. I'm not too sure about those two. But I know the Backyard Sports is going to be on Steam. So hopefully everything's going. I am going to play. Oh, and soccer. Soccer is back. I'm not sure when the rest of those are going to be coming on Steam, but they will be there. So we're just going to go ahead and get into these reactions. These reactions are from videos are from MJV Animations. Shout out to them. I will put their link in the description below, as well as the video if you want to see it without me yapping. Um, we're gonna go ahead and get started soon as it loads in.
2 years ago on Halloween night, college. Obviously, we were too old to do any of the normal Halloween things, but we still wanted to do something.
Like I've
The
seen this
ideas
one
really
before.
sounded good, and we ended up deciding it was only 8, so most of the grocery stores were still open. I got in my car and drove down to the store to pick up some cookies to bake, along with frosting and some Halloween themed sprinkles. As I was in the aisle, though, I
Yo,
noticed a man staring at me from the other end.
yeah, he need to
I
like
didn't
back
look at
up, go
him
find something to
directly,
do, go
but
find
I could
something to
see
play
in the
with, go
corner of
find
my
something
eye
safe to
that
do.
he was looking at me for the whole time I was in the aisle. Being that it was a holiday, the whole store was mostly empty, so seeing this guy being creepy like that was really unnerving. In my car, by the time I was out of the parking lot and onto the main road, I'd already forgotten about the man in the store. As I drove, there were very few cars out. I guess most people. Did, so I couldn't see who was inside or what they were doing. But once they got
They were following you,
uncomfortable,
definitely following you.
I told V about it when I got inside. Didn't seem to think much of it. We put the cookies in the oven and sat in the kitchen while they baked. Doorbell rang.
Hold on, people, hold on.
We gave each turned around, looking even more confused than before, and walked back to the kitchen. I asked who it was and what they
You heard the
wanted.
video.
V said it was
Because I just
someone's
realized
car,
the
but when
desktop
he asked
audio
what
was
he
not playing.
needed, the
I'm
guy
sorry,
didn't
guys.
say anything. So V closed the door.
Wait, was that a guy with a
Apparently,
mask?
he was wearing a cheap plastic mask, but from the other features V described about him, it kind of sounded like the man I'd seen at the store. I didn't know if it was just me being paranoid, though. I got up and went to see for
Dude
myself,
from the store was wearing a
walking
mask
quietly
and
up to the
followed you
door
to your
and looking
house.
out the peephole. No
Now
one
he
was
know where to
there
be found.
anymore. But as I stayed and looked, I saw a car parked across the street, the same one that passed by earlier, now sitting right in front of our house. Its lights were off and didn't seem to be running. I told V, explaining everything and getting him to come look at the car. But then there was a thud that echoed through the house. We stopped and listened, hearing it again, coming from the basement. I walked over and opened the basement door, looking down the staircase as the thuds got louder until it went quiet. There
Your
was a
house?
moment before
That's what
there
it
was
sounded
the
like. He
faint
found
sound
someone in
of
your house.
footsteps shuffling through the basement.
He
I
found
shut
someone in
the
your
door
basement?
softly without making any noise, and V was already calling the police. The basement door didn't have a lock on it, so I was just pressing my body against it and hoping for the best. The muffled footsteps went across the basement and to the bottom of the stairs, where they stopped. As I listened, the suspense made me more and more scared. V grabbed my shoulder and told me to come with him as he ran to the front and out of the house. We quickly got in my car and drove a few streets down, then waited for the police to arrive. When they did, nobody was inside. But the basement door was wide open, and in the basement were shoe prints coming from the window well that had been broken
Oh,
open.
he broke.
The car was gone, so the man had of course driven away, but it seemed like he left as soon as he noticed we weren't in the house anymore, because he didn't take anything. Whoever that guy was had followed me from the store, stalked us,
Of course he
and
did
then
because
broke
I
in.
literally asked, did
I
he?
don't
You
know
didn't check
why
to
he
see if
did any
anybody
of
was
this,
following you.
but I just hope that I never have to find out.
Hey, what's the next story?
It was 2018, and I was still in middle school at the time. Me and my friend group were really excited for Halloween, mostly because we knew this would probably be our last year trick-or-treating, since we were getting too old for it. Our school only had a half day, which was really nice, but we didn't meet up until 5. By then, the sun was starting to set, which got us all more in the mood to go running around and get as much candy as possible. There were 3 of us, all just wearing black clothes with random masks we'd found a couple days before. It was pretty low effort, but still
Oh, with
enough
those
to count
masks.
as
I
trick-or-treaters.
really hope nothing's gonna happen with those masks.
Anyway, we started by meeting at my house, then moved our way through the neighborhood. Our goal was to get to the other side of the neighborhood, where there were custom houses on a street where all the rich people lived. It was separated from the rest of the houses and quite the walk, but we knew that they'd have to be handing out full-sized candy. We stopped by most of the houses on the way there, taking us almost 2 hours before we got to the big houses. By then, most of the other kids had gone home, and the sidewalks were mostly empty. It was late, since we'd started a bit behind, but it wasn't so late that people would be going to bed or anything. As we walked up to each big house, though, we realized a mistake in our plan. All the houses were really far apart. It took probably 5 minutes of walking to each door, so we had to jog to every house just so we could get through them all in time.
I
By the
mean, you
time
didn't
we
have to
finished,
jog
the
at
last 2
all.
houses had all their lights off, and no more people were answering their doors. It was just past 9 p.m., so it was really dark out and really late. We all agreed it was time to go and head back to my house so we could watch some movies and eat some of the candy. But just as we began walking down the street, we saw a man walking toward us.
You
It
walked
was
all
way
the
too
way.
dark to see what he looked like, but it was definitely an adult wearing a hood covering his face, and he was alone. It was just us and him on the road.
And you
We
don't
all
say
thought it
nothing
was
to him.
weird that someone would be walking around like that on a holiday where kids were running
And
around,
while your mask
so we
ain't on,
moved
he
over
don't
to
see
the other
your
side of
face.
the road. As we passed the man, he watched us from the other side. He tried to hide it, but it was pretty obvious he was looking right at us.
Yes, and you with
This
no
was really
mask.
weird behavior, and none of us wanted to stick around, but we were all exhausted from having to run from house to house over the past couple hours, so we opted for just walking quickly and checking behind us to make sure we weren't being followed. After a few minutes, we felt like we'd put a good distance between us, but out of nowhere, my friend in front stopped abruptly, causing me to bump into him and stumble back. I jokingly called him a few choice words, but when I looked up, I immediately went quiet. There was a hooded man standing at the side of one of the houses ahead, hiding between the trees in the woods just outside of the reach of the streetlights. All we could see was his figure, but from the looks of it, it had to be the same man we'd just seen. He was just standing there, as if he was waiting for us to get closer.
And that's when you
We
walk
were
the
all
other
whispering to each other as we stood in the road and tried to decide what to do, but there wasn't
other
much to
way.
decide on. There was only one way out,
Now you put your
which was
mask
the way
on.
we were heading, so we kept
He already
walking,
seen your face when
keeping
y'all
all our
walked
eyes on
past
the
each other.
man. As we got closer and closer, just about to pass him, he started quickly walking out of the woods and toward us. All of us started running, making a break for the trees on the other side of the road. We stayed together, running into the woods in the direction that we hoped would lead to the other neighborhood. But the further in we got, the darker and more difficult to navigate it became, especially while running at full speed. After a minute or so, we realized the man had either lost us or stopped following. We took a moment to collect ourselves, leaning up against a tree. Only a minute passed before we heard footsteps in the leaves somewhere out in the woods nearby. We silenced our breathing as best we could and listened as they slowly moved through the dark, eventually fading out. We waited a bit to make sure it was safe, then hurried out of the woods and made it back to my house. None of us had the nerve to call the cops, but we didn't see any other kids outside on our way back, so hopefully they'd already gotten home. We don't know what that man was trying to do, but chasing us into the woods and continuing to try to find us only makes it more terrifying. We stopped going out for Halloween after that, but I still get chills thinking about that night. I'm 26, and this happened last Halloween. I live alone in a small house in a normal neighborhood, and every Halloween was always the same. A bunch of kids would come by for candy until around 7 or 8, and then I'd stay up and watch whatever movies were playing on TV. I was never much to celebrate or party. I actually preferred to just hand out candy and spend the night alone. On this day, kids started showing up around 3 and continued to flood in until 7. Then a few more groups slowly trickled in before I figured it was slow enough to start watching some movies. I set down the bowl of candy and went over to the couch, turning on the TV and looking for a channel that had a good scary movie on. I scrolled around for a few minutes, but was interrupted by a knock at the door. I put the remote down and opened the door, holding the bowl of candy in my hand. When I opened it, though, I was surprised to see a man on the porch. No kids anywhere, just a middle-aged man in regular clothes. It was unexpected, making me stutter for a moment before asking, "How can I help you?" The man looked at me, then looked behind me into my house. "Is Aaron here?" he said quietly. I asked who Aaron was, but the man didn't answer and continued to try looking behind me. I asked again, and he finally looked back up at me and said that Aaron was his son who was out
Even
trick-or-treating,
talking to him.
but he's
You
lost
should have
him.
looked through your peephole. Close the door.
Strangely, He said it all with an emotionless gaze, then turned around and walked away from the door. I watched him, puzzled at what just happened. The man walked down to the sidewalk and then went out of view. I shut the door and stood there for a moment,
And lock
collecting
it.
my thoughts. It was so bizarre, but something was definitely off. I got my phone and called the police, reporting a possible missing child, as well as the man's strange behavior. I made it clear I didn't know anything for sure, and just told the operator everything that happened. But obviously nothing was going to be done unless something else came up. After getting off the phone, I checked out the door one more time before going back to the couch and finding a movie. It was one of the Scream movies that had started a few minutes earlier. During the movie, there were no more trick-or-treaters or knocks at the door. By the end of it, it was nearly 11, and I was just about ready for bed. I stood up and turned to get the bowl by the door, but my eyes caught a glimpse of a figure in the window across the room. By the time I realized and shifted my eyes back, the figure was gone. I could feel my heartbeat in my chest, thinking about if they had been
Yeah, I don't
watching
believe
me
in
this
blinds
whole
or curtains in the
time.
studio.
I slowly walked up to the window and peered outside, but didn't see anyone. Although I'd only caught a glimpse of them, I knew for sure that it was a person, so I was reasonably horrified. I backed away and went over to the front door, looking out the peephole. Nobody was out there. Getting even more nervous, I turned back around and suddenly saw an object slam against the outside of the window, forming a huge crack in the glass. A figure stood behind it, looking over at me.
Probably
before
old
running
dude
towards the
that was
backyard.
outside you sitting there talking to. He trying to
I
break in your
quickly
house.
dialed 911 again and stayed in the hallway, looking all around at the windows. But after a minute passed, and then another, whoever was out there had left. Police did what they could, but there wasn't much I could help with. It looked like the person had smashed a rock or a tool against my window in an effort to break in. But other than that, their intentions are unknown. I keep trying to find the connection between the two incidents, the one with the man on my porch and the one by the window, but there's no real evidence showing it was the same person, other than the unusual way he was acting and looking into my house. There were also no reported cases afterward of any children gone missing, so what that man was really doing at my house remains a mystery.
Was alone in the house, and you pretty much showed him that you was.
My friends and I got invited to this exclusive Halloween and haunted house party. I wasn't really the partying type, so I wasn't really interested in going to the party, but my friends forced me to go. We were grown, and not everyone was into wearing costumes, so masks were the minimum requirement. My friends got me a mask to use, so I wouldn't use it as an excuse to not attend the party. They dragged me to the venue, which was a few blocks away from our apartment. The house was nicely done. Gravestones and fake corpses were dangling from the trees by the sidewalk. There was a fake altar where it looked like nuns were about to sacrifice someone, in a place that had some kind of art done to make it look like the devil was trying to escape from a hole in the wall. The house was a large building, and you had to go through the haunted house to get to the party. My group had 4 of us in total. It was me and 3 of my friends. We all entered the haunted house almost as soon as we got there. There were a lot of flashing lights that hurt my eyes, so I had to close them. When I opened them again, I was the only one left in the room. The lights suddenly went off, and I was plunged into total darkness until a row of lights leading up somewhere ahead appeared. I began to follow it, realizing it was my way forward, but I had barely taken 5 steps when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around sharply to see an average height man in a mask standing behind me. I laughed because I was thinking he had been part of the haunted house and was probably there to scare me. He brought his hand out of his hoodie pocket, and I could tell he was holding something, but I couldn't tell exactly what he was holding. I laughed nervously as I was starting to feel a bit uncomfortable. The man began to move closer to me, and I started moving
Back up.
backwards slowly as he approached me. He got close enough to me, and one of the lights reflected off the object in his hand.
Yeah, you
And
need
I
to
saw that it
run.
was a knife.
You need to
I
run.
said, as he took a swing at me. I put my hand up in an attempt to block the knife,
What?
and I felt an extremely sharp pain as the knife bit into my arm.
You could have
Then he took
dodged. You could
another
have
swing,
ran. You could have did
which I
anything, but
managed
you
to
put your
dodge
hand
somehow,
up there.
and I pushed him backward and took off running as I bled profusely. I continued to follow the light through a series of flashing horrors as I made my way to the main party where I could get help. As I reached the end of the haunted house and entered the party, my attacker jumped and threw me to the floor. Instinctively, I responded with my left elbow and caught him flush on the nose. I gave him a nudge
Through the
to push
mask?
him off of me before jumping to my
I
feet
guess.
and screaming for help as my hand bled even more. People looked at us and laughed, thinking that we were a part of the show. The man pounced on me from behind again and stood over me with blood pouring from his nose, through the mask, and onto my shirt. He straddled me and sent the knife straight down towards my throat. I managed to stop it halfway, but not without letting it cut my palm. I shouted for help again, but no one came to my rescue, and the knife was coming dangerously close to my neck. One of my friends must have heard because his fist suddenly crashed into the man's masked face. The man recovered quickly, just as my friend was taking another swing, and the attacker stabbed him in the stomach twice. He grunted and fell to the floor, and that was when the other guests realized that it wasn't part
Oh,
of the
now,
show.
now y'all realize it's not part of the
Back
show?
my way.
That there's an actual killer
The man
on the
jumped
floor?
off of me and ran away as if he
Jump his
became rushing
behind.
towards me. I ended the night with 13 stitches, and my friend ended up in the ER. Police caught the man, and he was remorseful. He said he didn't understand what happened. He said that the flashing lights at the entrance of the haunted house had messed with his head, which is obviously just a horrible excuse. He would say anything to help him get into less trouble, I'm sure. I bet he's going to even try the insanity plea. I don't see that working out for him, though, if I'm being honest. This happened in a small town in Minnesota, and if it can happen here, it can happen anywhere. Be safe and have a fun Halloween this year, everyone. The vaguely lit streets were cheering with decorations and teeming with excited kids and teenagers in high spirits as they raced from house to house and street to street trick-or-treating. Every kid on the block was out on the street having the time of their life and collecting weeks' worth of candy from their neighbors. Everyone was out there having fun, except for me. I had gotten in trouble in school, and I had been grounded for 2.5 weeks, Halloween included. All I could do to keep myself from dying of boredom was to watch the trick-or-treaters from my bedroom window. It was the night of a new moon, so the sky was pitch black and starless, with a few clouds lazily
Your
floating
parents say
by.
you don't get no Halloween.
It
Not
might
even
not
trick or
have been any
treat.
moonlight, but it was hard to notice with all the street lamps and the lights from all the decorations. Each front porch had a variety of hand-carved jack-o'-lanterns, brought to life by candles and other sources of lighting. Each house tried to outdo the others in the level of decorations on and around their houses. Plastic skeletons were hanging from trees and hiding behind doorposts. Cackling witches stood guard like sentries on the roof of a few houses, and some houses even incorporated fog machines into their decorations. My house wasn't left out either. There were a couple of animatronic spiders moving up and down the walls. We didn't have a fog machine, but there were rubber snake traps on the lawn and hidden in the grass that jumped out and hissed whenever they were stepped on. There was also a lifelike scarecrow on the front porch. I didn't know why my dad had set it up, but I liked it. It gave our house a unique look compared
You
with
said
the
a life like
neighbors.
scarecrow,
It was indeed
scarecrow
scary looking.
with a jack-o'-lantern head.
It was as tall as an adult man and had a large jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah, that's not a
They
decoration.
wore tattered clothing, which sort of looked like a bunch of old dirty
And what's
rags,
on
and had a large fake hatchet strapped to its back. It still would have been creepy if it wasn't carrying an axe, though. It just stood out in a
That's
sinister
not.
way.
That's not a
Even some of the
decoration.
little kids that were trick-or-treating refused to walk up to our door and ask for candy. I'm guessing because the scarecrow scared them. But I wondered why my dad had not made it face the street. That would have been even scarier for people walking by. Instead, it watched over the house with its carved-out eyes. My mom called me to come and help her set the dinner table, and I finally left the window and the scarecrow. While I was helping her set up, she looked outside the window and called for my dad. Honey, did you move the scarecrow? She asked him casually. No, my father replied. Did someone take it or something? She asked, while looking out
So
the
that
window
scarecrow was
just in
actually
case
supposed to be a
anything was
decoration.
wrong.
You sure it wasn't
Maybe
just
she
real?
did, by the way. It looks almost too real, she said. My dad suddenly paused and looked at her with a puzzled look. You're joking, right? He said. I didn't put a scarecrow there. I don't have a clue as to what you're talking about. Stop joking, Gary. I'm starting to get creeped out, my mom said, a little bit frightened. I'm not, my dad said, and hurried to the window to
Did
see
he
if
even
it
buy a
was a
scarecrow?
scarecrow or not. He opened the door and looked outside, but my mom was right. The scarecrow was no longer on the front porch. And that's when my mom screamed, pointing at the back door. I turned around and saw a large jack-o'-lantern head through the see-through portion of the back door. Without thinking, I lunged for the door and turned the lock.
Oh,
Just as the
okay.
scarecrow was about to turn the handle.
It's my girl.
Up close, I could see the human skin under the jack-o'-lantern and the
You can
ragged
just go
clothes.
through it with the axe if
It
it's
wasn't
real.
a decoration at all. It was a real human being in a scarecrow costume. He grabbed his axe that was strapped to his back, of which I originally thought to be a fake axe.
No,
Took
no,
it
no.
out and took a
No.
lunge at the door, making my mom scream even more. The heavy blade bit into the door.
That
and he
means,
pulled
little
it
girl,
out
you need
with
to run.
another swing. My dad ran into my parents' room and he came back with his shotgun. He cocked it and took a shot at the door, blowing large chunks off of it. A few of the pellets must have hit him because he grunted in pain and then took off running, leaving a large amount of blood behind. I wondered what would have happened if I had not locked the door in time, or if my father didn't own a shotgun.
If I didn't have a shotgun, most likely your family probably would have been slaughtered.
My family has been completely traumatized by this whole ordeal ever since. I have been way more wary of street decorations since then, and every Halloween since that Halloween, I haven't went out trick-or-treating, which would be 2 years in a row now that I've missed. I don't think I'll be going this year either, unless a few of my friends will go with me.
Again, please check them out. I will post them in the description below. I will also post their channel, the video. So I hope you give this video a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you again the next time I post, which will be probably Backyard Baseball again, or I'll probably be streaming it again. Not sure which one I will be doing, but I will be doing one of those. So I will see you guys later. Bye.